It was a Friday night in November, and the wind had turned sharp over Baltimore. The sidewalks were emptying early, the shops closing their doors against the chill. But at a small apartment just off Edmondson Avenue, Sister Cathy Cesnik hadn't yet returned home. She was supposed to be picking up a gift for her sister's engagement, some new clothes from the department store, and then stopping for a quick bite. But hours passed. Her roommate, Sister Russell, waited, pacing the apartment, watching the hands on the clock spin later and later. It wasn't like Cathy to disappear. She was careful, thoughtful, a 26-year-old nun who taught English at Archbishop Keough High School, a woman who smiled at everyone, listened more than she spoke, and carried herself with quiet conviction. By 11 p.m., Russell's worry tipped into fear. Cathy was still gone. The next morning, her car was found, parked oddly along a curb across town. Leaves were piled beneath the tires, undisturbed, as if it had been there since the night before. Inside, there were no signs of struggle, no blood, no purse, no keys, just a cold silence. Sister Cathy Cesnik had vanished. For weeks, the city searched. Flyers went up across Baltimore. The police fielded tips, most of them useless. Her students cried in the halls of Keough, unsure whether to pray for her safe return or brace for the worst. Then, in early January, 7 weeks after she disappeared, 2 hunters stumbled across a frozen body half buried in the woods of Lansdowne. It was Cathy. Her skull had been fractured in a single brutal blow. She was dressed in the same clothes she'd worn the night she vanished. The snow around her had long since melted. Her killer had left her exposed. And then, silence. The investigation went cold almost immediately, but the story didn't end there. In fact, it was only just beginning. Around the same time, something else was unfolding behind the closed doors of Archbishop Keough High School, something Cathy may have known about. One of her students, Jean Weiner, would later come forward with a shattering allegation. She claimed she and other girls had been abused by Father Joseph Maskell, the school chaplain, and that Cathy knew, that Cathy had gently tried to help. Jean said she believed Cathy had confronted someone, perhaps Maskell himself, and that Cathy's murder had been a warning. More students eventually spoke up. Their stories were eerily similar. Maskell had taken them into his office, offered spiritual guidance, then something much darker, and he'd always insisted they stay silent. Jean's most chilling claim came years later. She said that sometime after Cathy vanished, but before her body was found, she was driven, blindfolded, to a remote location. That someone removed the blindfold, and she saw Cathy's lifeless body. "You see what happens when you say bad things about people?" the man allegedly told her. It sounds too horrific to believe, but Jean never wavered. The church, for its part, denied knowledge of any abuse. The archdiocese claimed it had no reason to believe Maskell had done anything wrong. Maskell himself fled the country when the heat intensified, first to Ireland, then to Luxembourg. By the time DNA testing became a possibility, it was too late. He died in 2001, buried in a family plot beneath a marble headstone etched with the words, "My Jesus, mercy." Cathy's murder has never been officially solved. The evidence was limited. The leads faded. The men with answers, if there were any, took them to their graves or chose silence. But her story lingers, in whispered student memories, in the slow exhale of a cold case growing colder, and in the quiet conviction of a young nun who may have tried to do the right thing in a world that punished her for it. Some believe Cathy was killed to protect secrets. Others believe she simply knew too much, too soon. But nearly everyone agrees. Sister Cathy Cesnik did not die by accident, and Baltimore never forgot her. Thank you for listening to The Lantern's Tale. If you enjoyed this true story, join us next time, if you dare.